Okay, the time is now 6:30. I'd like to call this special Board of Finance meeting to order. Everyone please rise for the pledge. Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Tom Sienkiewicz, Don Cavello.
Here.
Ian Gorman. Here. Travis Irons is absent. Ted DeMaine. Here. Terry Stelcoin.
Here.
And both Matt Ray and Keith Shirley are absent. Kelly and Billy are here. We are good. Acceptance of the minutes from the April 14th, 2021 meeting. Minutes were posted and distributed. Questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Me.
Yeah, abstentions. Motion carries. All right, first item under new business is to discuss and act on the 2% savings policy. I want to thank Kelly for putting together a draft of what we had originally adopted last year of the 2% savings policy for Board of Education. And I made sure that got distributed to all Board of Finance members. So hopefully you've all had a chance to read through. Unfortunately, it's not too long. It's only a page and a half. But it was definitely something that we needed to look into. As I've talked to a few members of the public who, obviously have an interest of what's going on, but were curious if they wanted to know more about this policy, which when they watch the budget meetings gets referenced many times during the budget meetings. They wanted to know where could I find more information about it. Of course, I've given them information about the state statute that it originated from, but it still would be helpful for them to have some type of description in place to see what the Board of Selectmen supported, what the Board of Finance adopted last year, and be able to answer questions for the public and anybody else of how this policy works. So what I want to do first is to ask the members, again, assuming hopefully you've had a chance to look over it, your thoughts. One of the things that we're going to have to do is, Kelly had indicated, we have a couple options in which we could look at for the actual notes of it, the way it's written. But of course, because this is our decision, we could also take something out of it, we could add something to it, we just need to be specific as far as how we would like it written. So, Ted, I remember you had a chance to read it. I believe you had some thoughts.
Yeah. Superintendent's here somewhere.
Yeah.
Exactly how do you use this? Is this the same as what we call the fund balance? Do you have to go to the town after 50,000?
We do not have a threshold. We have to go to the town and through the board anytime the Board of Ed requests to use the money, but it can only be used for educational purposes. So there's no threshold to get past. It is money that is just set aside from a prior year to be used in future years for purposes that are typically one-time costs so that you don't have a structural deficit.
So, now from year, if I understand this correctly, every year you could save a certain amount. This is after meeting all your expenses.
Every year you can only put aside up to 2%, which this has been a couple of unique years because of COVID, but you can only set up to 2%. Once that's there, you can add another 2% of that budget to the next year. So we have a $36 million budget. The maximum that could be in there is about $700,000. And then that can be depleted in a certain year or partially depleted in the next year if there were. We've never had more than 20 or 30,000 as a surplus. Typical any year that we look for the last 11 years, we've either been right on target, 5,000, 8,000. I think one of the larger ones was 20 or 30,000.
So you're saying that's all you would, in past years before this, that's all you would return to the fund balance would be how much?
That is correct. That's what would happen. We would return it to the town, and that would go in the fund balance.
Now, how much would you say in the last 3 or 4 years you've given back?
Oh, Ron,
One year we had $2,000 fund run,
that would have gone into that account. Or maybe 5,000 or 8,000. We've never had these 2-year significant levels.
What do you anticipate this year?
Between 5 and 700,000.
Between what?
5 and 700,000.
Okay. This board seems to have taken a position, and I hope the whole town has, that IT is very important. Do we all agree on that? At least one teacher has asked me why they can't get, I think they call it a smart board, for under $10,000. And we've met all our expenses, and we're going to turn in $600,000?
It's just
And
not.
we can't afford?
Ted, I'm sorry, it's just not a true statement. Someone can say that personally. If you check any school, we get a request and there's something missing, we purchase it. We have not denied a person, especially with technology. We bought literally 800 computers. We bought brand-new computers for every single teacher. We bought computers for every student. We bought smart boards. There is nothing, and in this budget of the 2% set aside is $250,000 to update the technology.
So
I know someone might make the statement, but I don't know how the request goes. I can't defend what doesn't come through me.
So every teacher that's wanted a smart board has one.
Every teacher who needs one, who we know of, yes.
If the request has come through our office, it's been approved.
Okay, so the teacher would ask their department head, is that how that goes? Department head would then, the teacher's request for the smart board, for instance.
If they go through their principal, it gets in their
Do we
budget.
go to the department head first?
Well, if you're at a high school, you have a department head. If you're in the elementary, you go right to the principal.
Okay.
There's no department heads at the K-8.
So why would you have the technology on your 5-year capital plan if it's already in the budget?
What's that?
You have technology in your 5-year capital plan,
Yeah.
but you already have it in your budget each year.
So we put the capital plan for 5 years going forward, because we're required by law to tell you these are the things we're purchasing.
Yeah, but these items will be in that budget that coming year.
Correct, and so we tried to code on the capital budget if it's actually being purchased this year, so that you would see if it has a code with it.
Now, at the end of this,
I have it, let me check.
Kelly and I had discussed just the wording thing. I guess for me personally, money will be returned to the general fund. I take the general fund as our operating budget, and I take the fund balance as something different. Am I correct? So if I change this from general fund to fund balance,
Yeah, that's easy.
I'm sorry, Ted, I didn't hear that. Was there a question?
no, it was, well, no, it's covered.
Oh, okay.
What was to do with the wording of fund balance versus general fund?
Oh,
I have a question for Kelly. Can do. On the wording on the first paragraph, it says to be used
So those are
for
two.
capital, technology, and special ed and whatever.
That's an option. That's if you guys wanted to read that way. Yeah.
Oh, but then the allowable, you only have it for the 5-year capital plan that's back on the allowable, so it doesn't really include these other items. I wasn't sure which one's contradicting the other, or...
Well, that is an option if you want to specify what it could be used for. Other towns specify what it could be used for, those 3 categories.
Right.
So if the school system knew those are the 3 categories, then I'm assuming those would be, on their 5-year capital plan. But as of right now, those aren't the categories, so that's why it's not disclosed on the 5-year capital. Just an option, however we want to write the policy.
What is the exact reason you couldn't use our fund balance? I'm having trouble with this. I don't think we need it, quite frankly.
Well, Ted, this is an alternative to the fund balance that you have. The fund balance that the charter allows for is anything up to $50,000 can be expended, correct? We can come to you for that.
Right.
In this law, what they did is they said, if the taxpayers contributed, whatever the number was, $35.8 million, and you underspent it by, let's say, $100,000, since the taxpayers plan to spend it on education, Instead of putting into the fund balance, which could be used for anything, this would be put in a set aside exclusively for education. So the money that the taxpayers committed to education would stay with education. When you do that, as in this case, and even in the capital improvement plan that Mrs. Stauber addressed, under the fiscal plan, it shows that there's a number 4 next to all the technology, because that number 4 relates to if that was going to be purchased. It now comes out of a 2% set aside. So you don't have to affect the fund balance because your fund balance is secure. This is money that the school has. So before we have to go to the fund balance and challenge the fund balance, this is something the school should work with within the realm of the money they have. So instead of coming to you and saying, can we have 30,000? If we need 75,000 to resurface the track, which we put in the capital project for the last 2-3 years, now we have the money, we just can fix the track. And so what this does is it allows the school to retain money that the taxpayers dedicated to the school system that in 1 year was not spent, so you leave it set aside for the emergency.
Maximum you can request to the Board of Finance.
You can't exceed whatever is in the 2% set aside. That's the
But
money.
there's no maximum within the amount that you have.
Correct, correct. And anything that the board asks for has to go through the Board of Finance, which is why we actually put it also into the budget and showed you the 2%, so that when you're adopting the budget, you see what we're spending the money on.
So you would go to the Board of Ed, and then the Board of Ed would come to us?
Well, the Board of Ed would go to you. I bring to them the things that we think we need, like we needed resurfacing, we needed a lot of technology, and then they approve it, and then we have to go through the first selectman, which is the Board of Finance. And the Board of Finance just has to make sure that the budget is there, that Mrs. Vashon says, yep, there is sufficient funds to pay for that. And the board can only ask for what is in that account and can only ask for things that relate to education.
So in other words, we can't use it for, I don't know, for instance, any kind of an operating expenditure or like pensions and stuff like that.
Right, you couldn't use it to buy a DPW vehicle. You couldn't fix a road with that. Because that money is in the fund balance. This would have to go to education. And in fact, when we met, we talked last time that there was a revenue shortfall that you see in our budget that happens because of enrollments. So I went to the board, because although it wasn't asked of us, I asked the Board of Education to dedicate up to $100,000 in that 2% set aside to offset the loss of the revenues. And they agreed to do that at their last meeting, to let you know that they feel that that's the cooperative relationship they should have. They have money in that account. We can't go lower than the MBR, but we can give you $100,000 out of the 2% set aside because you're not adding it to the budget, you're using it as an offset. You're just paying something with it.
Another question. Like, you say you're going to have 500,000 to 700,000 left over. For once you formulate next year's budget and get a total, can you use that as a revenue to go towards that?
Just like this year, let's say there was 150,000 needed in technology, not in technology, in capital, right? Let's say it was 150,000. And we were trying to keep that budget flat again. We could buy $100,000 worth of educational technology and reduce our budget to 50,000. Yes, that's how you would use the 2%, because you can carry that over multiple years to keep that offset so that you don't have to grow the budget. Like you saw, the last 4 years, the MBR has been flat, right? It's been about 35.9. And we've been doing that by using grant monies rather than asking for taxpayer money. So yes, it can be an offset. You can't put it in the budget, Ms. Southwood,
No,
then our MBR goes
your
up.
MBR will go up.
Correct, but
Once you formulate your budget on actual cost,
Yep.
then you take that, subtract, use it as a revenue. It brings the tax burden down on the taxpayers. And you still get what you want.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It avoids the tax burden by paying the extra money. So these things that we've been looking for, the asbestos, the track, the technology, 200,000, we're at the end of life on some of our file servers. Those are things we just can't buy in 1 year. You don't have 200,000. But because we have the COVID savings, we can now do it. We don't have to ask you only to 50,000 because it's 200,000 we need. Even the track is 75,000. The whole track is $250,000. But this is what it does. We won't have another year like this. So,
no.
so this is the windfall. And what actually, I think, if you check first selectman, we've been looking at also trying to reserve $100,000 of that money just because transportation rises, and we're trying to keep that balance. You know, just keep the cost flat as much as we can until we can get our breath and we get maybe a better, because the economy is rising here in Plainfield, and that's to the credit of everybody. So, I understand that your issue, you already have a vehicle called a fund balance that you can go to, but the town and the charter does not allow for anything over 50,000. You have to go to a referendum. And this just says, this was already voted by the people. You don't need a referendum to spend money that we already gave to you. You're just not putting it in a fund balance. You're putting it in a fund balance only for schools to protect the schools' needs.
But the fund balance is built up by money voted on by the taxpayer, am I right?
Correct.
So there's not much difference. So the taxpayer or whoever made the rule has decided, even though we've already voted on it once, you put it in your fund balance, to take it out, you have to ask us. So I don't see the difference. You're saying the voter has already voted on the education side, but it's also voted on the town side or wherever it comes from.
Right.
And for some reason, I'm not sure who put the 50,000 restriction in there, but somebody must have said that that's what we need.
I think there's two differences. One is, over the past 10, 11 years that I've been here, there's at least $100,000 to $200,000 that we've given back. Once the money goes into the fund balance, it doesn't carry. It's like, that's just gone and you start another fresh year. In this case, number one, what you're doing is you're putting the money in what's called a revolving account. It's a non-exhausting account. You can just hold that money there. So when there's a crisis, like we're trying to do an HVAC, if there was a school system, we had in one of the schools, we could do that. If there was a bad roof, which we've had in the past, you can do that job without having to go to the referendum, without going back to the taxpayers, without touching your fund balance. Because they already granted the money.
I remembered a few years ago the band uniforms. That was a big issue in town. The uniforms to replace them would be very costly. The Board of Ed, we didn't have it in our budget. So we came and we asked. A 2% set aside, we could use that money to immediately offset it so that there's no impact whatsoever with going through that. We frequently, if you look at other communities, Killingly recently used their 2% set aside when they had a significant rise in their out-of-district tuitions. And that was they had a very healthy 2% set aside. And there was no impact to their fund balance because it was already there in the set aside. After looking at how this has worked in other communities, it seemed like it would be the perfect fit. Not to say that we aren't managing our special education aspects perfectly, but there is, I feel like we are doing what we can, but that money is there in an account. It won't impact, say if there's another issue within town with DPW or something, you won't say, oh, we already accessed the fund balance to help the education. We, in a sense, would have that separate account. You obviously would get the report of how we're utilizing it, but I think it is a very smart strategy going forward.
And Ted, there's one other difference. 3 times, you gave us $50,000 to help us out with what we needed. Every time you did that, you had to change our appropriation. So if we had 36 million, we now have 36,050,000, and the new MBR adds 50,000. This never happens with a 2% set aside. That money is under your control. It's in your coffers. All we can do is say, can we pay this bill? And the bill gets paid. It doesn't change our MBR. It doesn't add to our appropriation because they already gave it to us once. You can't give us the money twice. The money's already there in the books. There's some merit to it, but I know it's a little difficult to understand.
Is this an annual plan? If I vote yes today, can I vote on this again next year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to reevaluate it next year, decide if we want to make changes to what we would adopt tonight, or if we didn't want to discontinue it, didn't want to use it.
And for the year we've had it in place, do you have any examples of usage?
We intentionally did not use it because we were saving it for the monies that we know we needed.
It hasn't even been a full year, Ted, that we've had this in
Yeah,
place.
that's what
So that'll carry over to.
I don't remember.
It is.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, last year in building this budget, if you remember, we cut $219,000 out of the transportation budget. This is what you were talking about, Mrs. Collins. We cut $219 because we said that was money we saved by not running the buses because of remote, and we put it in the 2% set aside. And that's what we would have used for this year. But this year we had, 40 days of remote, so we're saving $400,000. And again, but now that'll sit there in a year when you do have higher costs, and you can just apply it. But you do have every year you can look at this again, you can review it.
But you will still not be restricted to come to the Board of Finance to ask for fund balance money.
No, we could, but you'd have the right to say, why are you not using the money that you have? Like, why would you give us fund balance money if the taxpayers already gave us money and we didn't spend it?
No, I'm saying yours is exhausted.
You're right, if it was exhausted.
Then
It
you
doesn't,
come
it
to
doesn't
us.
change your charter, it does not change your charter.
Mr. First Selectman, I would just like your opinion on one part of this, because this is something that I think is very pertinent to the townspeople, is an option that we could consider adopting in this education reserve fund is all expenditures of the fund must comply with purchasing rules for the town of Plainfield and applicable requirements in the town charter concerning approvals by town meeting. What are your thoughts as far as even though this money is technically, it was approved in the previous year's budget, the townspeople already approved it in the budget, but it's been carried over. Should the townspeople, do you think, have an opportunity to vote on it again?
The understanding of what we're speaking about so far tonight, you are always going to be in connection with the Board of Education to know what they're spending it on. So the townspeople, they would know what it's being spent on. To restrict it to $50,000, which is what the charter says, means that every single time you come back to say, okay, we got special ed increases and we're going to be $150,000 short, to come to a town meeting to approve that and then go out to possibly to a referendum, it's not prudent at this point. I think what the idea is, this paper, when you're talking about putting that together, and there's a connectivity to the Board of Finance, at least know where the allocation of the monies go to, is probably the best way you can utilize it at this point. Again, the charter, while it is outdated and the numbers need to be upgraded, until the time that it actually occurs, I think the best way at this point is to continue going forward with the communication line between the two boards. It works best that way.
Okay.
I mean, you could probably set, special meeting dates so that when the Board of Education comes up against some issues that occur, to maybe, meet with you and then say, here's the allocations and why. And then you have a running track of what the, so let's say you said 600,000 to 700,000 possibly. And then that way you have a running track of what the allocation is used for and what's left.
Other thoughts from the members? Dean?
This year, you're projecting what type of surplus? Between 500,000 and 700,000. And typically, you have what on an annual basis?
Typically, about 3,000.
3,000, okay. So obviously, we're in unusual circumstances this year.
Absolutely, sir.
And looking over the budget, I do have a question, a specific line, and that is the pension. Is the overage, I mean, I've noticed the last trends have been 100,000, 200,000. What is the total contribution supposed to be to the pension?
1.4 million.
1.4 million. Seems like a big gap. That's a big gap.
I think if you're at 1.2 is what the contribution is right now.
It'll be 1.1.
It's low.
It'll be 1.1 if we go with this budget. The actuary requests 1.4 million. We pay out 1.5 million a year now in pension.
Unless something's changed.
All departments
Yes.
or just the Board of Education?
Board of Ed in town, all departments, 1.5 million.
And sewer.
Unless there's a change in the budget, I think you're at 1.2. You have 500,000 on the side of the town.
Yep.
You have 200,000 in the fund balance, which is called education. And we put 300,000 on our side.
So that's 5 and 5 and 9.
Where is that reflected in the paperwork, in the budget?
It's in multiple pages.
Okay.
And then Sue does
Dave,
it.
can I just, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand, so are you trying to tie this subject where we're talking?
Well, I'm trying to get an
To the
understanding.
2% policy?
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to
Okay.
get a little bit more of a grasp on what is applicable in this situation.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because we are going to have some more time to talk about the
Yeah.
but just trying to stick to the 2% policy. So I
Let me, maybe
Well, I guess my
this would
question
not be a
is,
good thing for a 2% set aside, because pension is recursive, you pay it every year. 2% should be a one-time home cost option.
okay, that helps.
Right, you don't want it, that would be the structural deficit. So, but I think you'll see where the money comes from pension.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from members regarding the education reserve fund? If not, I would look to see how would the members like to vote, make a motion for adopting it. Again, understanding that we need to make decisions on the two sections that Kelly had mentioned as far as how we would want to go. Personally, for me, again, just based on our discussion tonight, for the first portion, I would choose where it says, "This hereby created a Board of Education Reserve Fund pursuant to the Connecticut State Statute, Section 10-248A, to provide funding resources solely for future Board of Education capital, technology, and/or unanticipated special education expenditure funding needs." Personally, I could see going with that option, and then the other portion at the bottom where it said purchases will be made in accordance with Board of Education policy. Again, just saying, in my opinion, I could see us going with those two options, but we'd have to indicate that and then make a motion to adopt this policy. And it's, again, assuming that we're adopting it and it'll be in place, and then we'll do the same thing again next year.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question? Are you specifically restricting the use of that money for only those items that you just read?
That's, yeah, that's how it would be written, correct, Kelly? That's how it would be indicated, yeah.
Does that restrict us from resurfacing the track at the high school?
So, and we can't buy the
That would be
social
capital.
And
emotional.
that'll be part of
That'd be
capital,
capital.
right? Part of capital.
That would be capital.
And will that restrict this current pension? Because there's counselors in there, which is part of this, because it's a one-time, one-cost extension of, we're doing that. I understand you're trying to limit, and I don't know if there are limits in the law that say you cannot ask for something. If you think you need it, you're putting restrictions on a law that says basically if the school comes.
This is how other towns have it written.
What's it?
This is how other towns have it written.
Okay. So, I don't know, I haven't seen it yet, I don't know the policy.
But again, I was just stating, a thought there. It's up to the board, needs to vote on it and decide how they want to adopt it.
So are you saying about eliminating the charter part of it?
Right, because I think Kevin brought up a good point,
Yeah.
which we were just talking about in regards to town charter and voting on it. So.
I really don't think we need town meeting or referendum where we move the money they already got.
Right, which was already approved.
So again, how would the members like to proceed with it?
I don't have any problem with those changes that you suggested.
Okay.
I agree with that right now.
Okay. Now, here's the other.
We're going to review it anyway.
Yeah, well, here's another thought I just had though too, is, let's say we adopt it now, but let's say 4 or 5 months from now, we have a realization or something that maybe we didn't consider tonight. There's no real timeline as far as when we could revisit this, right?
No, you can amend it.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
amend it pretty much.
Yeah, we amend the fund balance policy.
Right, like we did with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
you can amend it.
When you say amend, could you dissolve?
Yes, yes. Yeah, in here it says closing of the fund, like if you decide to close the fund, it goes back to the fund balance. That, in the last page, remember you were just questioning
Oh,
about
yeah.
the general funds,
Yeah,
the
you're
fund
right.
balance.
Why do we have to have public notice? What does that mean?
Where is that?
It's in that
Is
last
there a
paragraph.
copy that we can read as well? Because I don't even know what you're reading tonight.
We never seen it.
In the last paragraph, closing the fund.
The fund, once it's out, will
The
continue.
Board of Finance will not close the fund without public notice.
I mean, that's just, I mean, we can get rid of it. It's under the assumption that you're letting the public know what you are doing. But honestly, that would be at a Board of Finance meeting, so that's public knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I thought you meant maybe we'd have to
No.
publish something in a newspaper or something.
No,
Okay.
no, no.
I suppose the other option too is if the board members wanted to have further discussion on this or get further input from the Board of Education, I mean, this could also be tabled. Again, I leave that to the Board of Finance members. It could be tabled to next month's regular meeting and we could act on it then.
I'm sorry, it's the first time I'm seeing this, so I'm trying to read it through, and I would just ask that you allow our Board of Ed to come to speak on this. We knew the budget, but I didn't realize that this was so substantial. I want to make sure that this doesn't preclude anything that we're already looking to use that for.
I move that we go to our next regular meeting.
Okay, I have a motion to table the acting on the 2% savings policy. Is there a second? Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? So again, this would be tabled to our regular Board of Finance meeting in May, which is May 19th, 2021.
Then that way they would have a chance to vote their opinion.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item, discuss and review current fiscal year 2021 budget statement. Kelly had a couple extra copies here in case anybody needed one.
I need the last one you sent out, Kelly, capital.
Kelly, anything to note on the budget statement?
Let's see, building permits, clinic and zoning, town clerk fees. These are revenues all the way through March 31st, 2021. So we still have 3 months to collect. So as you can see, we're already above what was projected as revenue for the budget. So this will be beneficial for year end. Nice to know that we got some swimming pool revenue. I posted through the end of March of $1,400 so far. So classes are starting to evolve.
Are they under the COVID restrictions?
Yeah.
Their classes are limited?
Yes,
Oh, wow, that's gonna hurt, huh?
yes. There's a lot of swim, like, the bulk of the 1,400 was swimming classes for children. But you're limited how many can be in there.
They also have life-saving classes? Or do they just
Well, I
just
think they just
exercise
had,
classes, open swim?
I don't know about that yet.
Is he here tonight?
No, it's not.
I can answer for that, though. You have lifeguard training. You also were offering 2 classes for CPR, CPR, AED, and first aid.
Is there like an open swim? In the past, we used to have an open swim.
The swimming, just trying to bring them all
classes.
back by end of month to what we had for classes before, just limited in size.
Same thing. Thanks. in all of these departments that we have here, I have requested names and positions of all employees. I don't know if anybody's here from the highway department, but the highway department so far is the only one that's provided that. Is there some reason why all other departments can't give us that information?
We can get that for you early next week.
There's nothing much in expenditures, everything, nothing that is posted as of now. Just so you know, the unemployment benefit, there's still a credit there, which I received a current invoice, so when you see the statement next month, it'll be a credit of $6,000, not $9,000. I had an invoice of $2,900 for unemployment. And then general insurance, you're gonna see that's a credit, there's a negative right now. There was another lawsuit, so that caused that increase.
I have a question for the police department. The stuff you get into the impound,
Yes.
how do you get rid of it?
It depends on what it is exactly.
Okay.
If it's a motor vehicle crash or unfortunate fatal, we may have that vehicle in there for a couple of years. Unfortunately, that's how long it takes for a complete investigation when it relates to that. If you're referring to whether it's drug forfeitures or we received it in relation to that, there is a whole process in order to get those items back. So it really depends on what it is and how we seize that item.
So you don't simply ever go to, say, an auction?
No.
Okay.
Are we expecting to be on track with total state revenue?
With what state revenue, which one?
Total state revenue?
I think so.
So only about half now.
Yeah. The state sales tax, you see 144,000. I just filled out the form to get reimbursed for that, so we should get that by the end of the year. That's a big item. The other ones, distress municipal, I don't think we're gonna get to 34,000. No, I don't think the state is going to reimburse us for that. That's about it. LoCIP, the 122,000, we didn't draw the funds down, so we won't receive the funds until we draw it down. So we haven't drawn down any LoCIP funds, so you won't see revenue for that. You won't see an expenditure for it either.
How much of this is coming out of the fund balance,
Of what?
the budget?
Of current budget, right, this one right here? Let's see. Oh, right here. Fund balance, 250,000 road construction, and school pension, 800. So, which is not going to be a full 800, correct? We discussed that at a meeting, 200,000, so 600,000, so 850,000.
A total of 850?
Yeah.
And what, projected, what's the mill increase?
About 1 now.
Less than 0.5%?
0.19.
Right.
0.19.
Well, when I was being asked on the street, I was saying 0% increase. I don't know, that's pretty close. What's that 19 mean, a couple 100,000?
Yeah, I have it calculated out. It's 194,000.
194? Do we have anything like in vehicle expenses, non-recurring expenses we could take out of the fund balance to cover that? Nothing out of operating expenses, strictly non-recurring. Kevin, do you know of anything?
There's lots of opportunities, Ted, it's just a matter of what the Board of Finance decides to do.
Well, that's my suggestion. We cut 194, I'll take 194 out of the fund balance in the non-recurring area, but I'm not going to be specific as to what it is. That's your discretion.
If I may. At the beginning, we explained that the board just, at their meeting, bought $100,000 for 2% set aside. That 194 will be 94, right? So that's already down to 94. They took a vote at their last meeting that because we had 540 in the 2% set aside, that the auditors said, no, you actually have 640, and we confirmed that with Mrs. Vashon. He said that's only they didn't expect, that was a little excess. So they voted to allow up to $100,000 to help with that, the revenue shortfall, which is a one-time shortfall deal that's happening. So the 100,000 is definitely can be applied. So you're down to 94,000, which is pretty nominal. It's almost non-existent at that point. You're talking about $2.50 per $250,000 home.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I think what we're talking about is really item 5.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about that. 'Cause, yeah, I mean, it's good discussion, but yeah.
Fine.
I thought what you were trying to do is to get back to this current
That's
budget
fine.
statement. Any other discussion on this month's current budget statement?
You have a question, Charlie?
Yep.
No. Emergency. It's under one of the expenses.
Yep.
We've already expended $31,000 on emergency communications, and that's pretty much our budget.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, a lot of the purchase services, the agreements that we have, we pay those payments right away in July.
Okay.
It's the first beginning of the year we pay it.
All right, so we're paid for the year then,
Mhm.
okay.
Yes, we're
So
good
we're
for
not
the
going
year.
to incur anything.
No.
With overtime on the police department, does that look like it's gonna go over?
Yes, so the overtime's not looking good at all. We are down several officers. We do have a couple that just finished off their training, so that is going to help substantially. The problem is we can't predict what we're going to respond to. If we get a domestic or violent situation at the end of shift, that's going to require me to hold over several officers, or a sexual assault for several hours. So I can't predict anymore, but at the rate we're going, yes, we are going to be going over that. However, I do anticipate to be able to do some line item transfers to actually cover that, rather than have to come back to the town requesting more funds. So I do predict that we will be able to cover it by a line item transfer, but yes, I'm also predicting that we are going to go in the red on the overtime.
Okay.
And Chief, another thing is,
Yes, sir.
before this budget is out, you're looking to still address surveillance,
That's correct.
but that'll again be coming in this year, so there shouldn't be any need for any additional money.
That's our hope as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments on the budget statement? No? All right, moving on to discuss, number item 3, discuss and review current Board of Ed financial report. We did get that via email, and I know there was a printing copy made, but thank you for making sure we got that. I forwarded that to the members. So any specific items any of the members found that they would like brought up for discussion? Terry, did you have a question in regards to transportation? I'm trying to remember. Board of Transportation.
The only thing I had was
Revenue?
the lease versus
Yeah.
BOE contract, two separate identities. So it should be in the revenue section of the town versus, you know, that's for the upcoming, yeah.
Do you know if that was negotiated or anything like
I
that?
think you confirmed, Kevin, that you went from 65 to 78,000, and
But
it
it
isn't.
was like discussion, it wasn't like confirmed, so I didn't know.
Oh, it's confirmed, yeah,
It's
that was all
confirmed?
confirmed. That's, yeah,
Okay.
that went up by $13,000 for the lease.
So Kevin's got a signed lease with them now?
I haven't seen it, so that's why I didn't know, that's why I asked Ken.
I mean, they should be totally out of that. This is between us and
Yeah,
DACO,
because it's not
not Board of Ed.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So,
So any discussion, questions on the Board of Ed financial report? No? Okay. Very good. Moving on to item 4, discuss and act on proposed 5-year capital plan. Did everybody get a current copy? Ted, you got?
No, I didn't.
All right. Dean, you got it? Kelly, what were the updates that were made to this most current one?
the most current one was the Quinnebog River Trail. We added 230,000 into fiscal year 2021-22. Originally, I think it was in 2022-23. So there's a chance of a grant. Kevin, you want to explain that more?
Sure. We've been working with different boards and entities from the state, but we reached out recently to Joe Courtney, who said he would try to push forward on the federal side of it to be able to come up with some grant money. There was some confusion at first whether it goes to the Moosa Valley Trail or to this, and we are pushing and urging them to go forward on this item instead. So we're waiting. We just heard today which way we want to go with it. We asked them to forward the paperwork for the Quinnebog Valley Trail. I can give more details of what that trail is, but that's what we're looking to do here.
Could you tell me 10,000 for pool repairs?
Those are
That's another one of my pet peeves.
Sure, and the idea is that you want to keep up on the repairs and not have any, if you don't have any money to hold on to.
That's not in the current budget though?
We just fixed everything and haven't been using it for all this time, so,
No, it's not in the current budget.
no.
If Jordan has a grant, we could then, use grant money. But no, it's not in the current budget.
Right. And the alternative to that would be putting 0 there every year, and that's not a good way to go.
HVAC in the town hall.
Yes, sir.
Is that for this room?
That's the entire town hall. Take a look. If you take a look, Ted, that's split up between 2 years. The total cost is approximately between 150 and 160. Once we put out the bid, we get the right numbers. But the anticipation is we can do the entire town hall, especially this room, so that we can actually have better functions here, whether it's winter or summer, and it'll be cost effective. I mean, we are relying on that boiler at this time, and that's not a good thing to rely on. If the boiler was just using the heat to keep the pool going, that's reasonable. That's very reasonable to keep it going, but not to have the heat going for the pool and the rest of the town hall. So that's why it's there.
HVAC for the clerk's office and the land records and everything. That
That's,
sounds pretty,
yeah.
sounds like an issue there.
I will say this, you see all those things that are listed there under the town hall,
Yeah.
whether it's 1,000 or 1,500 or 6,000, definitely the HVAC for the land records involves.
Yeah.
If we end up with money at the end of this fiscal year, those are the things I would like to do with the expended monies that we had at that time.
Oh, we'll just use Teddy's 12,000.
A question on the police station budget. I don't see anything here on computers. Are you now 100% up to date, or will you be after this year's budget?
We will not be after this year's budget. We do have that for the 21-22 budget, obviously, to replace several computers and some more of our technology in that aspect. But even still, we will not be where we need to be.
You needed what, 22?
So we have 22 desktop computers,
Yeah.
and we have approximately 12 laptop computers, and I call those mobile terminals as well for our cruisers, as well as some for our detectives that go out to calls. Those are not just regular laptops. Those are like tough books, and those are all completely outdated. We haven't replaced those in years, and we're at the end of the life on them.
I can't remember, are they in your current budget
Correct.
proposal?
Correct. So half of the desktop computers. None of the mobile terminals.
Oh,
obviously. No.
So are they in your 5-year plan?
No, not yet. No. There's a lot of things that we need. Those we're just hoping, so we can replace half the desktop this year. We'll do half the next year, as well as some mobile terminals. So we're going to try to space them out so it's not a big chunk all at once, and then have to do this again all at once. So if we can slowly space them out, we'll be able to get to where we need to go.
Any idea of the cost for the mobile?
Oh yeah, they're about 5,000 to 6,000 a piece.
5 to 6?
1,000 a piece, yes.
Yeah.
Desktop, we can get.
How many of those, the mobiles?
There's about 13.
You had some serious problems with your radios, which I hope will be corrected. Do you have anything like that in the computer era, where you have something that...
Yes, our servers, but we do have that budgeted also for this upcoming year.
Oh, that's in this year's? okay.
Yes, for our servers. Obviously, those are outdated as well. And meeting with Kyle Collins, we're into that budget of what we need to get us going and get us back up there.
And Gary, I would like to add on to that. I think it's very commendable that we're talking about a plan that is similar to what we're having here, but we're actually trying to rotate over a couple-year period to replace computers, because if you did it all in 1 year, then 4 years down the line, you're doing the whole stack again. So this way, it's not so much of a cost, but it continues the rotation. So I think that's a good idea.
It's a good idea as long as you can operate with it.
Yeah.
From what-
I mean, the desktop,
Them radios, from what I understand, were, let's face it, good luck, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, desktop.
So you did go 100% with them, right?
You
Correct.
know, you can buy all of those,
Yeah.
because you can upgrade the desktop without a problem. It's the laptops and the other special ones that are issues.
Correct.
Yeah. How bad's the roof on the animal control?
It has some leakage right now. It does need to be fixed. The plan is not only the animal control roof, but also there's the office being used by DECO, that we plan on doing a replacement with our highway and maintenance staff here to help to do it, to make it less costly. And we plan on doing it actually this,
I haven't been up, is it a shingled roof or?
yeah, it's pretty small. It's really not that big. So we anticipate doing that also late spring, early summer to take care of that. just asked Kelly, it was, you were asked, what are the changes, and you said they put about trail. Did you also add in the Lathrop Road sidewalk construction? Is that one of the other things you added in? Was that there?
Is it on the sheet?
It's on,
It's
yeah.
on here.
Somewhere.
It's on here.
Okay. You'll see on that page 2, the top of page 2, that all of these projects that we'd like to look at over the next couple of years will be listed here just in case we apply for a grant. We have it saying that it was something that we had an anticipation for, so that we could actually put the application in for the grant.
I have a question for the lower sidewalk, that bracket. Am I adding this up wrong? The total says 125, and the listing of what's there is like 265.
Yeah, there's,
No, I'll correct that. I don't know, yeah, that has to be a formula. I'll get corrected.
Hey, Ken, on the cafeteria drainage at the EHS, cafeteria drainage, was that a roof issue? Roof drainage?
School. No, at high school,
Yeah,
there's two exit doors
Yeah.
that exit the cafeteria.
okay.
They always get jammed up with ice in the wintertime. What they tried to do is remove the concrete in front of the doors to allow drainage, but it doesn't drain away fast enough, so it heaves, and then those doors jam up. So
No, are they egress
Yes,
doors?
they are.
It's actually grass area.
Yes.
You know, when you go in and you're looking at the grassy area, right, it's that grass area that goes into that courtyard. That's the area that's been getting flooded for a couple of years.
Yes.
So they didn't do some work, it just didn't resolve it.
There is a drainage area in the middle of that grassy lot, and the hope was to have excavation and piping put in to connect to that drainage, but it would require cutting up the concrete and, repashing, things like that. But that's one of the items that have been discussed in our walkthroughs for the last few years, just hasn't had enough to get done.
Kevin, what's the cemetery road water runoff project?
For many, many years, Ted, that area of Cemetery Road, when it gets to that lowest section of it, the 3 roads that are there, I'm trying to think of what they are. Trying to think of the actual names of the roads, but those 3 roads drain down into that area and then flood through, and we have some problems usually
It's at Bobby's
running
house.
through there for traffic. It is definitely an issue.
I'm sorry, I missed that. He said,
It's at Bobby Boise's house.
oh, Boise's house?
Yeah. Was it Oak?
Oak and I think Pine, and there's one other one.
Yeah.
So those 3 really need to be engineered. I guess what happened many, many years ago was when the housing was put in there, they never properly engineered drainage, as in done. So everything runs down the hill and into the road, and that is definitely an area where, school buses hit it all the time. We've had complaints from residents for many years. We took a look at it to say, what can we do to fix it? And we use our engineer to come up with an idea and a plan, and we have the approval from the 2 property owners that we would be working with to do a proper drainage by way of, on all 3 of the roads, we have a catch. Go underneath to a collection system, and then all the way out to a wetlands area. So we have a plan in place of fixing that up.
So where are you gonna dump it?
There's this,
Stanley
behind his
property?
house, actually it's behind Sherry's house. There's an area back there that has wetlands.
Right.
We're able to actually flood off into that.
Well, that'll be good for a couple of votes.
To me, it's just good for safety.
I'm sorry, I'm only kidding.
Just for safety.
I know Bobby Boise,
Yeah.
and I'm familiar. That's what I was wondering if that's the project.
Yes.
Good.
hearing is scheduled for Monday, May 3rd. So that means that if we vote to approve with the one correction that was noted thus far, which was the total, that Kelly's going to correct, so we could adopt this with that total correction and send it to public hearing. How do the members feel?
I'm all set.
Yeah.
5-year, I'm fine.
Okay.
I have one last question. Kevin, on the water pollution control for the new secretary tank, is that put up at bid? The $600,000?
The new secondary tank on the North Plain.
Right. Correct.
That has been on there for a long time. It is, I think a few years ago, 5 years ago, they went out with, was it Fussin' O'Neill?
Yeah.
And they utilized them to see what the plan would be and the cost. Back then, it was like 5.25, I think. This is conservative at 600,000. It is in our plans, and we will discuss that probably at next Monday's Board of Select meeting to start with, and then the Water Pollution Control Authority, because the intention is to use America CARES Act to help offset these costs. So we have it in here so that we understand exactly what we utilize the money for, and we'll go from there. So, yeah, it's probably going to be closer to 700,000. So I asked the Water Pollution Control Authority to come back with two plans. Plan A would be to a full replacement. Plan B was to utilize a refurbished materials for that tank. So, and then there's other things obviously with the we'd like to do with generators. But that's the intention at this point, to talk about America's CARES Act and make sure that it's used for that.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, is there a motion to adopt this proposed 5-year capital plan and send to public hearing with the one correction that we noted earlier on the total?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, last item, item 5, discuss and act on fiscal year 21-22 budget proposals pertaining to the town and the Board of Ed budget. So, Ted, this is where you can maybe make your statement again that you were saying earlier pertaining to the budget proposal.
I'll be good.
Now, actually, can you reiterate it? Because, again, I was going in line with the agenda. I wasn't thinking in terms of, so what was your thoughts again in regards to the budget?
What was that?
What were your thoughts again in regards to the budget proposal?
Basically, I got 2% there. That was basically what I had. But I do have one question for Christie. Have you read the proposal?
For the budget,
No, for the 2%.
I just received it from Kevin. He's going to email me a copy. I have not seen it.
So the Board of Education has not yet passed on that?
We have not seen that policy.
Yeah, that is a Board of Finance policy.
They
Because,
should have got the policy. Well, never mind.
yeah.
Right. But again, Ted, I'm trying to bring it back to the budget proposal. I know that is something that, again, we tabled that, and that's going to be revisited and discussed.
Okay.
But as far as the budget proposal,
I'm all set.
okay?
Kevin, have you entered into a lease with DACO yet? You were out the door a little while ago. DACO?
No.
No. But their revenue should be in this line item, in our budget, for their lease?
You're talking about the local revenue?
Yeah.
Should be. I contacted the DACO company, asked them for a follow-up discussion,
Yeah.
haven't got a call back.
What are you looking at for a lease per year or
Yeah,
start
I
off
think it's the
with?
same numbers you had proposed.
He has $1,000
other local rental, right by cell tower rental.
Right now, listed as 100,000, and then we adjusted, that's 878.
Can I ask you a question? When we were talking about the reserve account, did you say that the Board of Ed voted on 100,000?
Up to $100,000.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I
that,
didn't hear that, so I just.
right, so, one of the questions was, the appropriation is very low, it's only 47,000, and you can't go below OBR, so how could you help with the loss of revenue?
Right.
And I asked them, since we planned on 540, it's budgeted at 540 and the 2%, but there's actual 640, would you approve? And they voted on that last Wednesday to allow that to be given back to the town, put it in your fund balance, and just use that 100,000. It doesn't affect your fund balance, because they're gonna put the 100,000 and just use it for next year.
So we could have that as a revenue source, as fund balance, 100,000. Because it's gonna come back to the town
Right.
and have it as a fund balance. So
Yeah.
then your net result right here would be 94,000,
Right.
not 194,000. So you would have to cut 94,000 to get to a zero net. After I just using another 100,000 fund balance, which is gonna be coming back from the 2% reserve account. So you're looking at 94,000 right now.
Would there also be an adjustment for the 78,000 local revenue? With that robust contract?
You're gonna have to just increase it, it's gonna be, what did you say, 78,000?
78.
Versus like, so you're gonna increase it like 13,000?
13,000.
You're just gonna increase it 13,000, that's it. Yes.
So if we find or more than one non-recurring expense totaling 94,
Well, now you're at
we will be at
81.
zero,
Yeah, now you're at 81,922.
or whatever the final number is.
Yeah,
We need to find, what would you say, 81?
81,922.
Yeah. I think we can find that somewhere. Now, that don't matter where it comes out of the Board of Ed budget or the town budget, right?
Yeah, we have to be direct with
Come on,
what you want to do.
Right.
One or both budgets.
Maybe take that 47,000 or that, apply to make that, match that.
See?
Yeah, basically what we got to decide right now is, again, are we going to say that any adjustments, any cuts need to be made, or are we going to take it as it's been reduced down to, again, 81,922, and send that to public hearing? One thing to keep in mind is that we do have the opportunity after public hearing, which is meeting to revise and set the budget, which is 6:30 on Tuesday, May 4th. So we're deciding on here what we're sending to public hearing, and then we can make further adjustments if need be after that.
Well, personally, I think the public hearing will go real easy if you have no increase.
Yeah, and I know as Kevin and I have discussed during the entire budget season thus far, and I know I made my thoughts very clear on the first meeting, and that is that I don't feel that this is a year for increasing taxes on the town. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, other board members can reiterate theirs, but I think a zero mill increase would be the way to go personally.
My feeling is the Board of Education, the Board of Finance, the Superintendent, the Board of Selectmen, I think are all on board with that. And I think we all agree. Does the Board of Ed agree with that?
If there's
A 0 mill increase in the budget. That's our goal. Does your board agree with that?
I think we've brought you a very clear, concise budget this year. So I think we've done the best that we could do.
like I said, I think we're all in agreement with that. As long as nobody comes down to any undue hardship with that 81.
It looks like we're looking at a .08 mill rate increase where we stand right now.
A what?
.08.
Yeah.
The recreation equipment, that's 75,000, what is that?
There are more
And
things.
capital equipment.
I think we were looking at some more items you could purchase, but I think part of that is going to be coming from this year if we have unexpended monies.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yep.
might. I think you and I have been talking all year on how to get it so that the public has, something that they don't have to worry about with the tax increases.
They are for taking it all out of the fund balance.
That's your pleasure. I'm just saying, it needs to be, we can get it down to zero for that.
I think the Board of Ed and the town side have worked as hard as they possibly can to get this to zero, and we all agreed that we would at least try. We didn't know at the beginning where it would come out or how close, and I think we've done yeoman's job. Not we, the department heads for the town and the Board of Ed. I'm all for taking it out of the fund balance.
I have to go through the chair, but.
Yeah.
I just appreciate the concept that, if you can use the fund balance, almost every year you show that you are able to put some money back into the fund balance. I mean, that's been consistent for the last 3 or 4 years. By looking at 81,000, extra coming out of the fund balance, you're still improving the budget that's being asked for the town. You're showing good faith to the board that worked very hard to give you a budget that's only 47,000, lowest it's ever been in pretty much the last 5 years. I think you're showing that you're willing to raise the support for the schools and the town, but you're not impacting the taxpayer. Everyone wins. They're getting their zero. It's a little bit of an $81,000 hit, and we're already giving you back the $100,000. So I think it shows that we're working together. I think the public would respect that. Not just personally.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Kevin, even like you're saying, I know you said we could probably make some additional cuts at 50, but then we still have to take a portion of it out of the fund balance, so I can certainly see Ted's point. Just take the whole thing. The remainder, take the whole thing out of the fund balance.
We started the night looking at a .19, and now we're at .08, so I think it's a little bit what townspeople will appreciate, especially since we're looking at revaluation next year. So whatever we can do to keep the rate flat.
Kevin, do you have any idea what Amazon might bring in this year?
This year, the only thing we're going to get from Amazon would be the $400,000 approximately for their permit. And don't forget, it'll take about a year or so for them, once they're built, after that, then they'll get on the tax rolls. So we don't anticipate next year coming in on the tax rolls at that point. It really takes a full year and a half. So tight for next year. After that, we'll do much, much better.
What else is on the horizon?
Well, we've spoken about the solar farm over off the end of Cornell, which we have a hometown agreement with. So once that gets going, we anticipate $156,000 a year for 20 years, each and every year. You have other companies looking to purchase. I know there was one company looking to purchase the old Motorsport Speedway, the large white motorsports in the nation. They're still in negotiations right now for that. There are iPark lots, which we do have a meeting on Wednesday, I forgot now. Art, remember offhand? 28th, 1 week from today. So we're looking for that. So there's more revenue coming in. But for next year, there are other smaller businesses that are looking to come into town.
else?
No, I'm fine.
All right, so with that said, we can entertain a motion to send this fiscal year 21-22 budget proposal, Town Board of Ed, to a public hearing with the adjustment made of the 81,922 coming from the fund balance. And was there any other adjustment, Kelly, that we?
13,000 increase in other local revenue,
Yeah.
and then 100,000 fund balance from Board of Ed's motion of using that 2% excess account.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now moved on to citizen participation. I open the floor. Art?
Art Gagnon. First on item 2, the current budget statement. I imagine all the local revenue that's excessive goes back to the general fund?
Fund balance, yes.
Fund balance?
Yes.
Okay. I had a question about the highway overtime. I don't know if this was discussed already last time.
I don't know, what?
Highway overtime,
Your
it's like at 9.5%. Going to go over.
highway overtime.
We talked about that today. We anticipate that there will be a little bit more overtime to be utilized, and that is for the paving that will be done. I talked to the highway supervisor today, and he assured me that they will not go over on the overtime. Do I count on that?
It's
I'm hoping.
close.
Okay.
It's close.
It's going to be close.
The hazardous waste, the 2029-33.
Yep. This is something we'll be talking about on Monday, but just so you can get a preview of it. The Household Hazard Waste Day was successful in regards to over 370 residents were able to utilize it. The problem that we have is the 370 that utilized it were saving up for many years. So we had a bill for the person who ran it. It was $1,100 approximately. We had a bill from the services that came in, and that was, final number here. I'm correct, Kelly, it was $30,630. We anticipated on the low end, and everybody brought all their items in with them that they saved for many, many years. So, with that, I put something into the Turnpike buyer as a thank you to everybody that participated, but reminded them of different things that they can actually bring their oil to, bring their batteries to, and that way they're not stocking you up for the next time. So hopefully next time it'll be much, much less. So, yeah, I did go over, we'll do some line item transfer requests to the Board of Selectmen and then bring it to the Board of Finance for their next meeting.
That wasn't showing on here, but what I was asking about was the $2,029.33. That's already been expended.
That was for advertising.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what that was for.
Yeah.
Okay. Town building repairs is at 6.88%.
It's low because we utilize that for pretty much everybody's fixing. We helped the library when they requested to have the plexiglass put up. They didn't have anything in their budget to cover it, so we utilized that out of the town hall repair.
Animal Control had a problem with their furnace recently, so a portion of that came out of there. That's the most recent purchase.
We're going to be all set with it, though?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk about that at our line item transfer, so.
Okay. The other question I had was about the unemployment funds. Is that the only fund that rolls over every year? You can roll that
Well,
over?
that doesn't roll over every year, but it has a credit on it, so we're going to always have that credit on there. So I was trying to reflect it in here so you can see how it's diminishing. So right now, I got a new statement from unemployment. There was a charge about $3,000, so right now the credit's only $6,000. So by the time the year's over, we may have nothing left. But I'll record it every.
Okay, so that now in the proposed budget,
Mhm.
we're only putting 6,000 in
We
there.
reduced the proposed budget a little bit for unemployment to absorb that credit.
Okay, but it doesn't
We're
roll over.
hoping
so
it'll roll over.
It does or doesn't?
It
rolls
does,
over.
like if I have a credit on a vendor, it rolls over to the next year.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, that's good. Okay. That's all I had on that. And on the proposed budget, I guess the police computers always come out of, wait a minute, let me start with this one. The total computers budget, I want to get this right. Yeah, let me do this too. The departments are 46,443. All the departments' computer line items. Okay. The general town is 39,647. Correct? That's, I forgot what the total was. $86,090. $86,090. The police budget for this year is $132,994. Correct? So that's a total of $219,084. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. That was my first question. Now, every other year, this is another question, the police computers came out of the town budget, right? Which was like 125, 150, 125 for the last 3 years consecutive. This year, they're separate. They're looking for 132. I just want this for my information. So out of that, you're looking for 61,500 for hardware, for your server and for some computers. Correct, Chief?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so out of that remaining is like 70,000 or so?
Correct.
And that's for software and services you need every year?
Yeah, correct. So our records management system, we have a contract that we must pay for maintenance on that, and just off that is $17,300 a year.
Yep.
So we have contracts that we have for software maintenance.
Yep.
Whether it's crash zone and
I don't want you to go too far. I'm not asking what generally they're used for services that you use all the time.
That is correct.
So now out of our computer budget for last year, say 125,000, was 70,000 coming out of for the police services?
Our numbers haven't changed. It might slightly increase our contracts, but we haven't added any new software.
So last year, your software would have added up to about 70,000 out of our whole budget
Probably
of
a little bit less
125.
because it raised this year because the contract's raising price, but you are correct, it's somewhere up that.
Okay.
cost.
Let me check. I think that's it, though. Yep, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Any other questions, comments, or citizen participation? No? Huh?
Just one for me. I do want to thank all the boards that participated this year because it was a long process and a lot of changes along the way. So I do want to thank you, Tom, and we've spoken on a regular basis, and Ken, you and I the same thing. So we do need to keep in communications. Things change on a regular basis. But I think what we've put forth is a fair budget for both education and town, and I think that the people would definitely appreciate that they're not going to see an increase in their taxes, and it does help out tremendously. So, again, thank you all.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So be it.
Second.
Any second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?